Welcome to the Idea Climbing Podcast. Entrepreneurs face self-sabotage more than most people. We can also experience powerful self-confidence when we have the right strategies. I discuss how to overcome self-sabotage and replace it with life-altering self-confidence in this episode with my guest, Dr. Robyn Lynette. Dr. Robyn is an executive strategy partner who has spent nearly 2 decades working privately with CEOs and founders during the highest stakes moments of their professional lives. Drawing on business and sports psychology, she identifies the hidden patterns that can quickly undermine decision-making and leadership at the top, where the pressure is high and the margin for error is thin. The leaders she works with aren't looking for help, they're looking for an edge. She's also the author of the memoir, I'd Like to Thank the Cartel for Getting Me Out of a Cult. We dive into topics including how your brain can either help or hinder you, how to recognize self-sabotage and stop it in its tracks, how to maintain self-confidence over time, even on the down days, the one thing above all else that you need to do to end self-sabotage and boost self-confidence, and other golden nuggets of advice. You're going to love this show. Thank you for making time to do the podcast. I appreciate you, Robyn.
I am so glad to be here, Mark. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
And we're going to be talking about the entrepreneurial mindset, particularly ending self-sabotage and the other side of the coin, boosting and building self-confidence. But before we get into the tips, the tricks, the strategies of that, ending self-sabotage and then looking at self-confidence, why is that subject why are you passionate about that subject? What's your story in that world of the entrepreneurial mindset?
Yeah, so in that world, it goes back to when I used to play competitive beach volleyball. And there were some days where I could get on the court and I could nail it. Like I was a phenomenal volleyball player. And then there were other days I would get on the court and my partner would hold out a volleyball and be like, Robyn, this is a volleyball. Have you ever seen one before? And I was like, where did my game go? And so when I had the opportunity to go to college and I got to really look into high performance and how we achieve, the thing that I noticed that crosses all of the, whether you're in business or you're in sports or you're in the military, no matter where you are, is how our brain can either help us or hinder us when we're trying to do whatever we're doing. So I like to joke and say, whether you're using your brawn or your brain is still going to be in the way.
When you say help or hinder, talk about that a little bit more. How does your brain help and or hinder?
So your brain can help because obviously critical thinking, we can manage stress, we can override fight or flight, which you probably know that in the modern world, we're constantly in fight or flight and we have all those hormones that are constantly flooding us. And if you're going to succeed, you kind of have to be able to set that aside and be like, I know I'm not being chased by a saber-toothed tiger. We can do this. So that is help. The hinder is if you're constantly overcoming fight or flight and kind of pushing down that fear and the knowledge, you're also eliminating your gut instinct, your intuition, all of those kind of things that can help you because you've pushed it all down because you're in fight or flight all the time.
So how do you develop, let's talk about intuition first. How do you develop that?
So intuition is an interesting thing. There's a lot of science about it, and it talks about how intuition is your brain picking up on patterns before your logical mind recognizes it, which means what I call your emotional brain, that part of your brain that you think of the perfect thing to say 20 minutes after the argument, right? That's the part of your brain that was overriding things. If you want that intuition to come through, you actually have to listen to that part of your brain. And because so many of us are ignoring it and we're all critical thinking all of the time, it keeps us awake at 3 a.m. because, hey, I haven't had a chance to talk to you. I have all these ideas. So if you make time during the day to actually listen to your brain, and that can look like different things. It could look like meditation. That's a really big one. But then I get a lot of people, I don't have time to meditate. Okay, so maybe it doesn't look like medication for you, but maybe it looks for you like when you drive in the car, you don't turn the radio on, so you don't have input, so your subconscious brain has a chance to bubble to the surface. Maybe for you, it looks like you actually work with someone, whether it's a coach or a therapist or a strategic business partner or someone like that, who talks through this stuff with you and kind of can trigger that part of your brain to come up with intuition. But it's making time to listen. And then I know you've had this happen. You have an intuition, you ignore it. And then you're like, why did I ignore that? When you're walking out the door and you're like, I know I'm forgetting something. What am I forgetting? And you get 10 minutes down the road and your brain goes, oh yeah, I know what I forgot. I got to go turn back and get it. That's not making time for your unconscious, subconscious, emotional brain to bubble to the top so your intuition can actually speak to your logical brain.
What are some ways that your intuition, your emotional brain, what is the start of self-sabotage? How does it happen and how can you start to prevent it?
Self-sabotage comes with a lot of different forms. So some of the popular ones you'll hear people talk about are imposter syndrome, the
Mhm.
belief that you're not good enough. Obviously, that's imposter syndrome. And that is an interesting thing because that is your subconscious brain working against you. Imposter syndrome is someone else's voice from your past, could be your parents, could be a teacher, could be a lot of things, telling you you're not good enough, you're not going to be good enough, there's nothing you can do to be good enough. And it's become so much a part of our unconscious brain that we don't even realize it's bubbling up. It just is. So noticing that, recognizing that. And for me, with my clients, sometimes we'll dig into who said that to you? Where did that come from? And I love to ask my clients this question. Do you believe the voice in your head? So I gave the voice in my head a name. Her name is Harriet. So I can recognize her voice. When I start doing that self-sabotage of it, whether it's imposter syndrome or some other ones, hyper-independence, those things where I don't believe anybody else can help me because no one in my past helped me. Like my childhood was I was very much, I had to be on my own. Um, that when those things start coming up, I can say, oh, hey, there's Harriet. She's back. Those things are no longer true. I'm a grown up now. I get to make different decisions.
How do you become aware of that voice in order to name it? Where does that start as far as just simply recognizing it? Because I think so many people go on autopilot and they just, I'm having a bad
Yes.
day, but they don't know why. How do you recognize and address the voice?
So that's the interesting thing about that voice is it comes from your emotional brain, which doesn't have access to language. Your emotional brain is all feelings and intuition and gut and that kind of thing. Your critical thinking logical brain is where you have access to language. And so when you're having a bad day and you just feel awful, but you don't know why, that's your emotional brain having those awful, but doesn't have a way to articulate it. And the way to articulate that is to actually take the time to put it into words, which people hate this exercise, but it's a good one. Get yourself a list of feeling words. If you just Google feeling words, lists will come up. And if you're having a bad day, go through the list and find the words that match how you feel. Like, am I frustrated? Am I disappointed? Do I feel betrayed? Whatever is going on, find the words that match it. Now, it helps if you have someone to talk to, but even if you don't, you can do this yourself. But don't just read the word, say it out loud because that gives your logical brain really access to it and be like, oh, I'm feeling betrayed. Okay, why? What happened? And then you can start digging into why am I having a bad day? And sometimes it's dumb stuff. I got cut off in traffic and that ruined my whole day. Well, you can choose differently. But if you find out your business partner has been embezzling money and you're out $2 million, that's a whole separate level of betrayal.
So with your logical brain, talk more. What are some, I would use the word pattern interrupts, things like that. Once you address it, you find some words. What does your logical brain need to do to step in to pretty much, pun intended, save the day in this case?
So what needs to happen is you need to make time. And that's one of the things people hate it when I tell them, but if you have a bad day, if you find the words and you're working through it, but you're so busy charging ahead that you always have input or output. So when I say input or output, I mean either you're talking to someone, you're listening to someone, you have the radio on, you have emails. Like how much time in your day do you spend where your brain doesn't have input or output? Probably almost none.
Hmm.
And if you don't have time for your logical brain to kind of work on that and say, okay, this is how I'm feeling. These are the words that go with it. This is what I want to do about it. You never get to the this is what I want to do about it because your brain is running a mile a minute at other things. And then again, you're awake at 3 in the morning because you didn't deal with it.
So is it simply not having or stopping the rush of information for even 10 or 15 minutes coming into your brain? What
Mm-hmm.
is there a certain amount of time you would suggest as far as don't check email, turn off, don't put in the earbuds and play some music? How long does it
As long
usually
as it's
take to
music that doesn't
readjust?
have words. If you play music, it can't have words because that's input. Your brain has to process that. So it has to be no input, no output. I would love for people to do 15 minutes, but if you're really churning something, even 5 minutes is better than nothing. Now, people who meditate will be like 30 minutes, an hour, but if you could give me 15 minutes of no input, no output, or purposeful output, like you're purposefully writing, this is how I feel, this is what's going on, this is why it happened, this is what I want to do about it. If you're purposeful about it, or if you have a coach and you're purposeful about it, that's one thing. But just giving yourself that time to kind of, what's going on and what do I need to do to make it better? Even 5 minutes.
Well, once you start doing that, it's a little bit of an uphill battle, I'd imagine at first. Over time, if you keep doing it consistently, and I could guess the answer, but I just want to double check, does it become a secondary habit where you kind of almost automatically do address it, bringing your logical brain to take care of the emotional brain? Or do you think it's a lot of times it stays an uphill battle, or does it become more of a habit that's easier to do?
Well, so when you first start doing it, it's going to be like a dam breaking and you're going to get flooded with stuff because you've got so much you've been holding back. Your fight or flight you've been holding back. It's going to be overwhelming at first. But once you start doing it consistently, as long as you consciously do it consistently, that dam doesn't build back up. But what I find, especially with high performers, is that they get to the breaking point. They're like, okay, give me some tools. Fine, I'll fix it. And they work on it and they address it to the point that they feel better. And then they go back to their old habit until like, so that it's this pendulum thing where it's like, it's really bad. Let me fix it. Okay, it's not so bad. I can ignore it again. But if you purposefully do it consistently, over time, it will become easier and better. And you'll learn to recognize it. Like I recognize Harriet's voice when I hear her now, but I've known her name for 25 years.
Mhm. So where does self-sabotage getting backing it up a little bit as far as this is what you do and you have the dam that breaks and you get the
Mm-hmm.
list of the words, you get the emotions that you're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Why do Pat if people can do it and it sounds almost not almost but it sounds like it could be pretty easy of an exercise to do. Why do you think people stay stuck in self-destructive or self-sabotaging habits?
Partly because they don't realize they're doing it. It's such a habit. It's something that's been ingrained in them for so long. And it starts back in childhood. At some point in your life, someone else sabotaged you by telling you you were to blame for something you didn't have the authority over, whatever that looks like. So someone plants a seed in your brain. And like, let's go back to hyperindependence because that's one I see a lot. So hyperindependence is the belief that I can't ask for help because no one will help me anyway. I can do it better myself. I'll just do it. Don't worry about it. And you pick that up as a child, that where if you need something, your authority figure, parent, teacher, whatever, doesn't help you. They abandon you, they don't want to, they think you're mature enough, whatever. We could come up with lots of excuses, but you don't get the support you need as a child when you're little and you can't do it yourself. You say, I need help, you don't get help. And so it builds this belief in your brain that when I ask for help, people don't want to help me, or when I ask for help, people belittle me. And you don't even know you think that. Because as an adult, it just becomes, I'm better at it. I can do it. I don't want to teach people. I just, never mind. I'm not going to ask for help. And that hyper independence circles back to being self sabotage because if you don't ever ask for help, you burn out, you bottleneck your business, you can't scale. Like there's so many things that hyper independence negatively impacts.
I want to dig into that a little bit more. How do you break the cycle of hyper independence then? Because that seems like that could be a very broad reaching a lot. I would
It's
imagine people
huge.
listening or watching are like, holy crap, that's me. I didn't know there was a word for it. So how do you break a cycle of hyper independence?
Well, the first, like they always say with anything, the first thing you have to do is notice that you're doing it. And I have yet to ever talk to an entrepreneur where I talk about hyperindependence and what it is and not have them say, oh, yeah, I do that. So, pretty much, if you're successful, you probably at some level are pretty hyperindependent. Noticing it. The other thing is you have to surround yourself with people who you trust to help you when you ask for help. Because the worst thing you can do is reach the end of your rope, ask for help, and whoever you ask doesn't help you. That's going to reinforce the pattern. So you have to make sure you're surrounding yourself with partners, employees, medical care professionals, people who, when you ask for help, actually help you. That's going to help you break it because I know personally, because I've had to do it, getting over the hump of being willing to ask for help is so hard. And if you make that climb and then the person doesn't help you, it just proves, oh yeah, I can't ask for help.
That's scary. And once you get to this point, you start breaking the habits of sabotage, a cycle of hyper independence. Once you start recognizing it and dealing with the emotional brain the right way, the logical brain the right way,
Mhm.
when and how does the actual building of self-confidence start? So it's not just breaking
Ah,
a pattern of self-sabotage, but actually going above and beyond to develop self-confidence. What is that? Where does it
yeah.
start? What does it look like?
So that's the interesting thing about self-confidence is that confidence is actually something other people see. You don't have to feel it, other people have to see it. So you can behave and I can talk, hold on. You can do behaviors that look confident from the outside, and then you're going to get reinforcement that says you are confident. I'll give you an example from my own life. I happen to walk very confidently. I have very good posture. I move very confidently. I'm a former athlete, so I move with pretty good confidence. I have been in cities where I do not know where I'm going. I have no idea. I've never been here before, and strangers will come up and ask me for directions because I look like I know where I'm going. So I often will say to people, walk confidently in whatever direction you're going, and if you realize you're going the wrong direction, turn around and walk confidently the other way. And we can do that in anything in our real life. You can do it with confidence.
Is
Here,
that a fake it till you make it scenario? Talk about that a little bit more.
it's not really fake it because you know that it's an outside behavior. So the way you can notice it, I encourage people to turn on the TV and turn off the sound. So mute the sound on their TV and just watch whatever show, it doesn't matter. And pick out the perfect people that look confident and then decide for your like ask yourself, why are they confident? What are they doing that looks confident? Because you're not even hearing them. And so it's not so much fake it as it is to learn confident behavior. And once you learn confident behavior, you're going to start to feel more confident.
Talk a little, give me some examples. I love this. Give me some examples of confident behavior or behaviors.
So confident behavior is sitting up straight, speaking direct, like don't be mousy. Like if I sit like this, I don't look very confident. But if I sit up straight and I speak and I don't say, oh, well, I feel like maybe if, forgive me, but I think, no, none of that is confidence. If you have something to say it and say it with aplomb. Make sure that when that you move like you own your space. I see this unfortunately a lot with women where they are afraid to take up space. And that's there's culture and we can get into all of that, but take up the space that's yours. Move with confidence, talk with confidence, and that is the tenor of your voice, the way that your body takes up space. All of those are confident things that people can see. And you'll see them if you mute your TV, you'll see it in characters on TV who are confident.
You kind of touched on it, but I got to ask, does self-talk play a role in self-confidence?
Self-talk plays a role in everything. Because how the voice in your head talks to you is how your unconscious brain believes who you are. And so if your voice is mean to you, that's going to spread. It's like a cancer through the rest of your life. And so many people, their voice in their head says, I cannot talk, says things to them that they would never say to someone else because it's mean.
We spoke about it a little bit with self-sabotage. I'd like to dig into it again. It's mean. Is it recognizing the pattern of bringing self-sabotage back into it? Is it recognizing the voice in the first place and then replacing it with a different one? What do you do to change the voice in your head? Because that
Yeah.
I would imagine that often can be a subconscious thing where you're not even aware that you're doing that
And it
negative
becomes a
self-talk.
self-fulfilling prophecy. If you tell yourself you're going to fail, you probably will. And so the thing you have to do is actually get that voice out of your head because I use the word voice, we say voice, but a lot of times it's not words. It's your emotional brain, which is your fight, flight, back to that, right? It's what you were told as a child. So it's not so much a running commentary of words in your head, it's a running commentary of failure feelings. I don't know what I'm doing. People are going to think I'm stupid. And I obviously have to articulate it to you to explain it. But
Hmm.
your brain probably isn't doing that. It's probably just feeling stupid and feeling like people are watching them and feeling like you're going to fail. And so I'll often ask people, Tell me what the voice in your head is telling you. And it takes them a little bit to actually articulate it, to put it into words. But once they do, we can start to unpack it. Where did that come from? Who said that to you? Do you believe that? Why?
T- Talk a little bit more about that. How do you change the emotional? I'll, I was going to say emotional soundtrack, but I'll just make it a little bit more of less, I should say, about the actual words based on what you just said. How do
Mhm.
you change negative emotions once you realize you're having them?
So once you realize you're having them, you can start looking into where do they come from and is there evidence of that? Like for me, I was told at one point in my life that I was never going to make it. I was going to live under a bridge in a box. And I had a running soundtrack, emotional track in my brain that anytime anything went wrong in my personal life, in my business, immediately I was going to end up living under a bridge in a box. There was no in between. And I had to recognize that and start redirecting that and be like, Robyn, using your logical brain that's good at critical thinking, let's kind of talk about that. Is that really a thing? And I know logically it's pretty unlikely I'm going to end up living under a bridge in a box, but that's still, I'll still get that little demon in my head sometimes if something goes wrong. Like if a client gets mad and fires me or something doesn't work out or, whatever, name whatever drama thing could happen. Fortunately, I don't think I've ever had a client fire me. But anyway, if something like that happens, my brain immediately goes to what I call catastrophication, the worst thing that could possibly happen. And it's about how do we catch it? How do we notice that it's happening? And then how do we use our logical brain that has access to critical thinking to say, where did that come from? Who said that? And is that really true? And if it is true, what are we going to do about it? And if it's not true, why are we telling ourselves that?
Well, once you break that cycle, you get into the emotional brain, you shift the feelings. How do you maintain self-confidence over time and not go up and then slip up? How do you maintain it at
Oh,
least?
you're going to slip.
Okay.
That's the reality. I mean, it's just like, so if you've ever done anything athletic, you work hard, you get really good, and then you end up, they call it the Sports Illustrated curse. If you end up on the cover of Sports Illustrated, you're probably going to have a big fail. Well, that's because you only end up on the cover of Sports Illustrated when you're at your very peak. There's nowhere to go from there but down. And so if you're going to go up, you're going to go up and you're going to slip, and you're going to go up and you're going to slip. And that is just the reality. And the best thing you can do is not kick yourself when things aren't as good. Because what happens is you start really plummeting, right? You do something that slips up, your self-confidence isn't as good as it was. And rather than saying, oh, I didn't do that quite right, I can do it better, and turning it around, you get on this self-hatred train and down into the pits.
So when it comes to talk, are you saying that, tell me if I'm on point, to break you won't completely break the cycle of this,
Nope.
oh, everything's hunky dory and all rainbows and unicorns, fine.
Nope.
It's up and down.
Mm-hmm.
But does your logical brain connect, overpower the subconscious emotional brain, but with self-talk about I'm good, I'm great, there's what I did before? How does the logical brain during those peaks and valleys, how does the logical brain play a role with the emotional?
So your logical brain can intervene, but your emotional brain has got some really strong evidence and has probably really got a lot of words to say, and it's going to tell you, oh, you're just lying to yourself. But the more often that you find evidence that shows, no, this is true. Like for me, if I look at my balance sheet of my business, I can tell my logical brain can tell my emotional brain, look, you're not living under a bridge in a box. Balance sheet looks good. You're fine. And it does over time. You can shut it down faster. So do I still have that voice? Yes. Am I able to shut her down faster so that I don't end up crying, sitting on my stairs crying? Yes.
Mm.
So that's the thing, is just giving yourself permission to keep doing it over and over. And eventually it happens faster.
And we have covered a lot of ground in a short period of time. For people listening or watching, when it comes to ending self-sabotage and building self-confidence, whether it's reiterating something you already said or touching on something new, if you were to tell people, look, when it comes to that ending self-sabotage and building up self-confidence, at least do this one thing. At least do this one thing above all else. What would you tell people to do?
One thing, I think the number one thing is find the ways that you self-sabotage and give them a name so that you can start recognizing them, because so many of us do it at an unconscious level. So whether it's imposter syndrome or hyperindependence, or you don't go to bed at night, so you're exhausted all the time, whatever self-sabotage it is that you're doing, find them and label them so you have the chance to do something about it. Because as long as they're not labeled, they're under the radar and they're just going to keep breaking in and ruining your life.
That is some excellent advice. And if people want to find you online, where's the best place or places to go?
So I'm on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on there, so they can always find me there. I also have a website, mentalmacgyver.com, so they can find me there as well.
Thank you very much, Robyn. I appreciate the time today. This has been excellent.
You've been great, Mark. Thanks so much.
And scene.
How do you feel about it?